Hypercharges are probably going to be getting some type of change sometime in the future. My only source for this is a Reddit post posted 3 days ago by Far Apple, saying recently Danny said the devs would like to improve hypercharges to make them worth the 5,000 coins instead of decreasing the cost, because a lot of people are always complaining about how expensive they are, which makes sense because they're more than twice expensive as star powers, and the gold economy in the game has always been kind of problematic. How would you change hypercharges to increase their value? So today, I'm gonna go through everything. I'm gonna give you guys my opinions, and we'll see if anyone agrees with me at all. Sometimes when I throw ideas out there, it takes like 2 years, but it eventually makes it in the game, and it usually ends up being pretty good. So maybe this will happen in 2 years. Just link me this video when it happens. This video is gonna be cut into a bunch of different parts because I want to make everything pretty concise, because I have hope for the future of hypercharges. They're not really that bad right now, but I think that they could be a lot better. So into part 1, the problems. I think there's a couple main problems with hypercharges. Some of those being, some of them are too strong, some of them are too boring, and some of them are just not worth the gold compared to other ones, especially with them costing 5,000 gold. For example, lose hypercharge is, in my opinion, actually kind of boring. It doesn't really change his super at all, besides the fact that it instantly stuns somebody. So even if they nerf that and make it like a 50% stun, it's still just gonna instantly freeze someone if you have the gadget, so you can just put it down, half stun them, press the gadget, stun them. It's gonna be the same thing, but you have to push 2 buttons instead of 1. So I don't feel like it's gonna become that much more fun or that much more, I guess, creative. It's basically gonna be like his gadget in the hypercharge, which I find kind of boring. I feel like hypercharges are supposed to change the super in a fun way that allows you to also aim it the same way, because I think that's what I remember them saying a while ago when talking about hypercharges. The whole goal is to make it feel like a different ability, and for Luz, for Shelly's, for Colt's, for a lot of them, it's not really changing the ability at all. You aim it the exact same way, of course. Some of them are actually the same size, even like Luz. And I just feel like some of them aren't special enough, even if they're super overpowered, because people don't really like when stuff is super overpowered. People would probably much prefer when things feel very special. So the first thing I would like them to set their focus on is, rather than just figuring out what would be the strongest, instead they could figure out what would be the most fun to use. I don't see anybody having a blast just pressing Shelly's hypercharge and having a slightly larger super, or Colt's being slightly larger, or Spike's being slightly larger, or Luz freezing somebody faster, or anything like that. I don't really find that very fun, and I don't see a bunch of people talking about like, oh my god, this slight difference is so fun. There's a couple ideas that I really want to put out there soon, so we'll get into that part right now. Part 2, the ideas. Keep in mind, these are some ideas that I'm just pulling out of nowhere, but in my brain, as I'm saying them, they sound fun. If they sound stupid to you, whatever, all right? One of my ideas is hypercharges don't exactly need to just change the super. They could change other things about the brawler. I feel like that would be perfectly fine. What it seems like they're kind of going for with the hypercharges is like adding a second super to the game, but I feel like they could have just added that instead of hypercharges. So we'll get into that later. This is why I feel like hypercharges shouldn't even need to exactly be for the super. But let's look at one prime example. Shelly's super with hypercharge is just larger. That is the only difference, and besides that, she gets basically the same stat boosts that everyone else gets. I think that everybody getting pretty much the same boosts feels kind of boring and bland, because you know what to expect with every single brawler. They're gonna get faster, they'll probably get a shield, they'll probably get like damage or something like that, and I feel like that's gonna get boring for a lot of people really fast, especially when there's a lot of potential, because there's a lot of things in this game that have a ton of potential. One of those things being gears. If they kept rolling out new gears that were really unique pretty much every update, I feel like that would be insane. The gadget gear changed the whole game, and I feel like anytime they add a new gear that every brawler can get, it would be really fun, because every brawler has a new thing to use. I'm getting sidetracked, okay? My idea for Shelly is, instead of her super getting larger, or instead of her super really changing at all, because her super is already good, what if they finally add that chicken pet that she was supposed to have since the early days of the game? Shelly presses hypercharge and doesn't even need to use her super, but when she presses the button, it spawns her chicken friend, and it does whatever it's supposed to do. I just feel like that would be fun, and it would feel different, because some brawlers would use their super with their hypercharge, and some brawlers like Shelly would get her chicken pet when she presses the button. And for Spike, instead of his super just becoming larger, You could probably do something with cactuses, I feel like. I don't know exactly what that would be, but given some time to brainstorm all about hypercharges, I feel like people could come up with some really unique stuff. And besides just changing the abilities, I also was thinking about some ideas for the stat boosts that every brawler pretty much has the same thing for. Right now, we have a few main things. I might be forgetting one, but I know that we have like movement speed, a shield, and something else usually that you get when you press your hypercharge button. To me right now, it feels like every hypercharge is giving brawlers basically the same thing. But what if brawlers got certain stats based on their kit and it was like more personalized? Like for example, Colt could press hypercharge and maybe he could get a little bit of extra range on his attack, or he could get like a reload buff, or his main attacks shoot more bullets out, something like that. And let's say tank brawlers like Bull or Frank could maybe get some type of like overtime heal during their hypercharge. And I'm sure given time, they could come up with really special things for support brawlers, tank brawlers, assassin brawlers, far range brawlers. I don't want to keep coming up with random ideas on the top of my head, but my main point here is hypercharges don't only have to affect the super, and also the stats don't need to be the same for every brawler. I feel like there could be a lot more creativity put into these if they made the hypercharges affect brawlers' main attacks or just brawlers' passive abilities, or they could even do both, but I feel like that would be a bit too strong. I don't know, bro. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that they should just keep them how they are, where they only change the super and they only give you speed and a shield and one other thing possibly? Or should they take a risk and try to figure out something that could really change things up and make things feel like different and unique for every brawler in the game? Maybe that's too much to ask, because I'm not a game dev. I don't know how hard that is to do, especially consistently with each update, but that's my dream, all right? I always have dreams for this game of how things could be changed or how things could be better, and that is one of them, that hypercharges could just be a little bit more fun. Now it's time for part 3, the second super idea. I think this has a very, very low chance of happening, but what I was most excited for when Hypercharges got announced to Brawl Stars was the possibility of them being secondary supers. Whether that is a secondary super that you can equip, or it's a secondary super in the sense where you get your super once, you save it, you get it again to overcharge it or hypercharge your super, and then you use this super that you saved up to get a secondary super that is either stronger or a lot different. On paper, I just feel like this would be a lot more fun than hypercharges. Maybe I'm an idiot for saying that, but I can really envision this game having a mechanic where the super button literally just has a second ring going around it after you fill it up once that's purple, and then it turns into the hypercharge button, which could even give you the speed boost and stuff like that possibly, or it could not. It could just add the extra effect to your super. But I feel like this would just be a way cleaner way of making hypercharges work. I kind of felt like having hypercharges need another button when its main purpose is to make your super have a special effect is a little bit weird and a little bit finicky to use. This is just me being an idiot, but most of the time when I press the hypercharge button, I don't even have my super up, or I just don't even remember to use my super, so I'm basically not even getting the super effect out of it, which is a skill issue, but also I really just wish it was a second super because that's its entire purpose right now. They're not changing the attacks, they're not changing anything else about the brawler besides stat boosts and the super's ability, so why does it need to be a third button? Brawl Stars has changed things like this in the past, like huge mechanics that they see flaws with, they will change them, and this could be one of those things. This is honestly the number one thing that I'm gonna push for with hypercharges is the fact that it doesn't even need to be its own button. They really like keeping simplicity in this game, and removing a button will keep the simplicity a lot better than keeping a fourth, fifth button in the game will. I don't know if this opinion will be popular or unpopular, and I'm sure a lot of points will be brought up about it, like, oh, some brawlers get their supers a lot faster than others. What are you gonna do about that? Well, the second super could take longer to charge up. GG. Problem fixed. I feel like it would create a new sense of resource management in the game, like a new strategy, a new skill cap to the game, where if you're able to save your super long enough, then you get rewarded by saving your super for long enough by getting your buffed up super with your hypercharge super. And at that point, they could even remove the special stats that you get from it. Although I know that a lot of people say that like the movement speed is their favorite part because the supers themselves are really boring. And at that point, I feel like what they could do is they could make the supers more unique, like we were talking about before, and then at the same time, maybe reduce or remove the stats that you get, or even just change them to something more special. I'm gonna be honest, I'm just a little bit worried about what the game is gonna look like when every brawler has a hypercharge. because in the Hypercharge events where everybody has one in the match, it feels so chaotic, and it honestly isn't that fun to play for me. It feels like there's too much going on with everybody being faster, everybody having a shield, everybody having these special crazy flashy things going on. I feel like it's maybe just a little bit too much. I don't think pros are very happy with Hypercharge at all. I've been watching some people. A lot of people seem to not really love it. And I'm not trying to be super negative about it. I'm just trying to be critical about it in the best way possible, because I feel like there are flaws, but I feel like it has potential. It shouldn't just be removed. It should be fixed and changed and just made a better version of itself. All right, I'm gonna say it. The number one thing I want is for it to be reworked entirely from being a third attack button to instead just being an overcharged super. And listen, maybe it's a dumb idea, but if this happens in 1 to 2 years, come back to this video, just link it to me and tell me, hey, you did it again randomly 2 years later. They did the thing that you mentioned that you really wanted in the game. It'll happen again eventually. If whether it's this or something else, something will happen. And since reworking Hypercharges is on their list at some point, and maybe they can give this a watch and pick my brain. At the end of the day, I care for the health of the game. I care for the gameplay of the game, and the gameplay ties directly to the health. And I feel like Hypercharges, after a couple years when they add a ton more, when every match is just full of Hypercharges, I don't feel like that's going to be a healthy state of the game. I feel like it's going to be way too chaotic. There's going to be too much going on. It's going to be too flashy. The screen is going to be like too crowded with people moving super fast, and it's going to be speed stars like everybody said with the speed gear. So some changes definitely need to be made. What will be changed? We don't know yet. We'll find out. But that's gonna do it. If you made it to the end of the video, then you're a pretty cool guy. And if you are hearing this, then I need you to leave a comment saying I hypercharged your mom, and I will see you later. Goodbye.